Welcome. This session is powered by Global Talent Solution, supported by leaders of all nations, Global Society for Female Entrepreneurs, Helping Hand Foundation, Explore London, Global International Alliance, Ladies of All Nation Global Foundation, RM Infinite, International Youth Society and Dream Bigger. Today's host is Dr. Jaya Sajnani, and the guests are Dr. Zoya McCants and Rolla Khaddage. Enjoy the session.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining today with us on our fifth session of Mindful Entrepreneur Program. The topic for today is Imposter Syndrome and Overcoming Self-Doubt. I am Rupali Talani, today's host for the session. Today's session is powered by Global Talent Solution, which is a non-profit organization with a vision to create a future where talent knows no boundaries. We believe that every individual, regardless of their background or circumstances, should have access to quality education, training, and opportunities to excel in their chosen field. We serve as a bridge between the education system and the talent across the globe. We offer a study abroad program, cultural exchange programs, student exchange programs, and online speaker sessions where students and professionals can engage with industry experts around the globe. In the fast-paced world of entrepreneurship, mental health and often takes place a back seat. To champion the cause of mental health awareness, it's crucial to highlight the unique challenges faced by entrepreneurs and explore strategies to forecast resilience and wellness. Therefore, we have dedicated this program to educating and empowering those individuals with tools and techniques to not only to identify but also to use to overcome the feeling of being overwhelmed. Before we start today's session, I would like to express my huge gratitude to our supporters. Without them, this project would not be possible. They are Professor Caroline Makaka, founder of Leaders of All Nation International, Lady Dr. Ruby Motter, founder of DSFE Global Society for Female Entrepreneurs, that is in USA, Dr. Lenora Peterson, founder of GIA Global International Alliances, that is also in USA, Dr. Randy Ward, founder of Dream Bigger Institute, USA, and RM Infinite, Lily and Harry, founders of Speakers Are Leaders. Now, I would like to request you all to be muted and start today's session. Here it is. Let's welcome Dr. Zoya McCants. So I'll introduce her first. So Dr. Zoya is a distinguished licensed mental health counselor and educator affiliated with prestigious organizations such as Alpha Chi, Phi Gamma Mu, Psi Chi, and the American Counseling Association. Oh, wow! With the extensive expertise in cognitive behavioral therapy, digital behavior therapy, and mindfulness-based therapies. Dr. McCants specializes in addressing women's issues, providing LGBTQ plus counseling, and enhancing interpersonal communication. Oh, as an administrator in student affairs, she is dedicated to promoting wellness counseling, offering career guidance, and serving as an adjunct professor. Dr. McCants' holistic approach to counseling and leadership focusing on fostering empowerment and well-being in individuals and communities. Please welcome on the stage Dr. Zoya.
Well, hello. Thank you for that warm welcome and introduction. Okay, so I'm going to get started and I'm going to share my screen. And once I do, we'll just talk through imposter syndrome and imposter phenomenon. And then we'll go through a little bit of like self-doubt and some confidence, and we'll end with some tools. All right, so I'm going to share my screen. All right, so I'm just hoping that everyone can see my screen. All right, so we're talking about imposter phenomenon and this concept of self-doubt among entrepreneurs. So first, we look at the definition of imposter syndrome, which I like to call imposter phenomenon. When it was coined in 1978, it was identified as actually a phenomenon, an occurrence that has happened to lots of people from different backgrounds and different ethnic backgrounds or racial backgrounds. And it's just about us, it's a pattern in which like people have doubt about themselves, about their accomplishments, and they see themselves as being exposed as a fraud, as maybe all this stuff that I've done, all this work I've done is just not enough. So I I'm not I'm not doing enough. I'm not good enough in a sense. So just gonna stick with me as we talk a little bit further here. So again, just asking yourself, is it a syndrome, meaning that it has a basis in medical history? Not really, right? So it's more of an experience we all have, and it's big. It can be if we're male or female, and then our racial cultural divide. So, who does imposter syndrome or this phenomenon affect? So, when we see it, we know that again, it can occur across the board. But where we see it most often is happening in groups of folks who are in a marginalized community, and for women as well. We also see it amongst the age range. So we can see it in our teenage years, we can see it in that early professional, we can also see it in that mid-career individual. But then we look at the why of imposter phenomenon. Where does it come from? Why is it here? Like why is it happening to us, right? So first when we think top box, but women and diverse groups have often faced the microaggressions, discrimination, and feelings of displacement inside and outside of the workplace and school. And when we think about folks who are in a marginalized group as well as women, we recognize that imposter phenomenon can actually add to what they're feeling because of their racial background. It can add to that sense of feeling that I have to work a little bit harder, I have to go a little bit stronger. And this is where we see the why come in. Why is it there? Not just because I'm a woman, but there may be that intersectionality, but also adding in our racial component, our language. What is our first language? How do we speak? All of those things just matter in how we see ourselves. So when we talk about the phenomenon of imposter syndrome, it's just like this concept of how do I see myself first? Do I see myself as being able to show up in a space and show my education? Do I see myself as being able to show up in a space and show my hard work and my ethic? Or have I also kind of been talked down to? Have I experienced a microaggression or a micro insult or a micro assault before? Have I heard things that didn't make me feel good about how I see myself? And if those things have been experienced, it definitely contributes to our phenomenon of imposter syndrome. All right, so I recently watched a movie, and this actress name is Kiersey, and she played in a movie called Flatliners in 2017, which is a remake from the older version, about I think 15 years before or a little bit more. So Kiersey's character is Sophia, and Sophia is a medical student, and she's in her early 20s in this particular movie. So first thing, she's enrolled in a top medical school, so like one of the best. Then she realizes she's the only Black person in this privileged space. Then she talks about how she's worked extremely hard from her adolescent years, her childhood, and then she's like, I know I deserve to be here. I worked really hard. She derived from a single parent home. And she talks a lot about her mom and about how her mom is in her life. And I'll get to that a little bit more. So her only support system, as I want you to think about this, is her mom. But then she has this doubt. I'm not smart enough because I've tried to pass these exams. I've tried to study as best I could think of. I've done all the things and I can't retain the information. I need to be able to do things at the top of my class. Then there's some more doubt. She doubted her ability to be able to move to her next level. So from being a resident in her first year and now going to her second year, am I even going to make it? Am I answering the questions correctly when I have the head doctor come in or our chief and ask me a question about a diagnosis? And then she had some guilt. I do not want to disappoint my mother. She spent her life savings to put me through medical school, right? So that concept of guilt and where guilt comes from for people. So back to mom being a single parent who used her entire like 401k, cashed it out to put her daughter through medical school. So now there's this guilt that I must do well, I must succeed. And then lastly, there's this shame. She felt forgetful, as if she couldn't remember her key medical terms or diagnose as quickly as her classmates. So every time she's in a space with her classmates, she's trying to answer those questions and get there as fast as she can, but she has this thought blocking because she's completely overwhelmed and she can't find her sense of self. So this is Sophia. And maybe you identify with some of the things here that Sophia has gone through. So when we think about these behaviors or symptoms that show up in imposter syndrome or the phenomenon, as I like to say, right? We see this list here, feeling incompetent while clearly exhibiting competence. So like Sophia, worked hard, was accepted into her program. It was in her first year of her residency. She belonged there, but she couldn't see it within herself. Being scared of failing to meet someone else's expectations. Sophia's mom, right? Mom said, "You no, I spent my whole 401k. You are going to this medical school. You are going to graduate. You are in a top school and you will be the best." And not only that, now we have the chair, the big medical doctor who's in the room with the white coat on, who's like, "I'm asking you a question, and this I have a patient here who has this has these issues. What's the diagnosis?" And if you get a little forgetful and you trip up, now you're doubting yourself, right? So I have to meet these expectations. Then denying the hard work and successes to luck. Oh, I just got here by luck. I was a diversity hire. Really? Were you? Or did you work really hard to get there? Believing to never be able to maintain the same level of accuracy. Again, doubting yourself. Getting embarrassed or uncomfortable when praised. So like when someone reads your bio and you're like, "Oh man, they read my whole bio and they just like gave me all this kudos and I don't know how to accept it." It feels really odd. Being unhappy with achievement. So even though you have the achievements, they're just not enough. Somebody else achieved this thing, so I need to do it too. Doubting your capabilities, feeling overwhelmed by the need to do more and to be better. Think about that. Like, how many times have you felt this need to just be better? And being distraught by the fear of being inadequate. So, again, when we think about this as being a syndrome or phenomenon, these sound more like the behaviors and the symptoms of a phenomenon as opposed to a syndrome. So then we hear this concept of working twice as hard. Some folks have heard this term before. You have to work twice as hard to get half. So the little first box over here in our left-hand corner, it's actually an article, a study on, I feel like some people work twice as hard to get half as much. Children and adolescents' perceptions and experiences of poverty and inequality. So this is an entire study based on this concept of working to twice as hard. So if any of you watched Scandal, which was on a few years ago on TV, and everybody was a Scandal fan, right? And her dad yells at her and says, "You have to be twice as good as them to get half of what they have," right? Those folks who have more, those folks who have access and privilege that you may not have. So you're working twice as hard. Think about that pressure that lies on you now. Then we have Nicki Minaj here in this picture where she talks about a tweet and she says, hey, being a woman in my industry, hip hop, entertainment, I have to work twice as hard as the men here. Men get glamorized, men get contracts, men get deals, and I have to go harder each time just to get where I am today. Then we have our basketball player here. Same concept. Until we as Black people don't have to work twice as hard for only half as much, only then will we come together as people. Now, let's think about this not just for folks who identify as being Black, but a person of color. Just the mere fact of being a person of color and feeling like you have to work twice as hard. But now we're adding on some extra, right? Oh, now I'm a woman. So now I've got to work twice as hard to get paid half as much. So now I'm doubting my abilities. I'm working, I'm coming in earlier, I'm staying later, I'm doing the most that I can possibly do. And now here I am as a woman doing all this work and being paid less than. So all these things add to how people are feeling. So well-being, our overall just concept of how we are, wellness, the things that we do to take care of ourselves, the things that we do to make sure that we are okay. So according to a few research studies, it pretty much comes out and says when there are lower levels of connectedness, confidence, and self-compassion, then we have increased levels or higher levels of stress, anxiety, depression, and then burnout. So just let that sink in for a little bit, right? So connectedness meaning who's in your group, who's in your community. If you are working as an entrepreneur, do you have that sense of community? If you're working in corporate America, do you have a sense of community? Who do you eat lunch with? Do you eat lunch with anyone at all? Or do you go to your desk, eat it, put it away, and start working again? Connectedness, the confidence that is instilled in you that has started from years and years ago. Where did that confidence come from? Your parents, what they taught you about your culture, your religion, how you identify, all those things are a part of this. So if that is low, then there are higher levels of stress. Connectedness also means your sense of belonging. So if you don't feel like you belong, that level of stress is automatically going to increase. So we have good stress and we have bad stress, but anxiety can come in at this point where that bad stress starts to come up and it's increasing on a daily basis. And that's just the way you feel each time. I am stressed. I'm feeling anxious now. I'm on edge. I'm feeling sadness now. I'm getting burned out from work because I'm coming in so early and I'm leaving late. So, some tips for working through imposter phenomenon. First, we have to talk about it. You have to talk about it. You have to talk about your experience because you trying to suffer in silence is not going to help it. It actually makes it worse. Identify your allies and your advocates. Again, find that community. Where do you feel? So if you're an entrepreneur, you're looking at your professional network, your community of people. And we know that when you start your own business, you are by yourself, unless you have a co-founder with you, but then it's just you and that person. And there's nobody else that you're talking to. So if you're alone, you bounce all the ideas, you do all the IT work, you do all the marketing, you do all the phone calls, you do everything on social media. You're the contact person and you are tired. Where's your sense of community? Build your community. And then ask yourself, what fills your cup? Is it your spirituality, your faith? What do you believe in? Do you have mantras? Do you pray? What are your practices in your self-care? Self-care starts from long before. So sometimes we're not necessarily ingrained with, hey, do these things for self-care. Or we don't necessarily hear our parents say, hey, do this for self-care. And then I want you to think about writing a list of your achievements and put the date next to it. What year? Write your why and revisit it often. And then it's the use of therapy to tackle some insecurities and confidence. Improve your self-esteem by being able to say, I am enough. Everything I have done is enough. and understanding your workplace or your space in your field. Where are you? Are you the first and the only? Are there other folks who look like you? Some relatability, folks you can talk to, folks who understand and you can just be there around. Get information, do your background work. And I don't want to reinvent the wheel, but the Calm app has an amazing information on building confidence and self and resilience. So you have these steps here for resilience. Take care of yourself, keep your promises, to move in ways that feel good, celebrate your small victories, stay true to your values, acknowledge your achievements, speak positively to yourself, and try something new. And I think I'm out of time now. Dr. Jaya, am I out of time?
Yes, you are out of the time, but you have still buffer up time, which is 2 to 3 minutes. Please go ahead. We are very interested. It's very interesting topic you are sharing, and we want to listen.
All right, so you can use the Calm app. So like all of you who are on LinkedIn, you can follow Calm, and you don't have to buy the app if you can't buy the app. Don't have to. But there are some tips, and there are really good articles and blogs on this, all right? And it's shared. I also have a link that I can put into the chat for everyone. But this information is the same when it comes to building your confidence. It is the same when it comes to building your resilience. Your resilience is your ability to bounce back. Your ability to where if anything was to happen to you, if there was a traumatic event that happened to you, it's your ability to be able to come back from that event. We all experience hardships, but how do we get back up? That's our resilience. If we improve our resilience that we can bounce back, we can also build in our confidence. But remembering that there's intersectionality in everyone, how you identify, your age, your racial background, your ethnic background, your cultural practices, your language, everything about you, that's your intersectionality. And that is what pivots this phenomenon of imposter syndrome. If you were told, someone told you, I don't like your accent, now look at that. It impacted how you feel about how you speak. And now that impacts what? Your confidence. And what did it just do? It impacted your resilience as well, because now it's like, I don't want to talk anymore, or I'm going to go to every class to change the way that I speak, because you're trying to meet the needs and expectation of someone else who's just insensitive. So you've got to be willing to be strong for you. And that's where this all starts from. So I'll stop there. And I just put my email address here, my LinkedIn profile. I will also share it in the chat. And I just want to thank you all for giving me the opportunity to share.
Wow, that was wonderful. Thank you so much, Dr. Zoya. That was amazing session. I'm sure Rupali will kick in now and we'll have a more feedback, but I was thrilled as an entrepreneur. I completely relate that when you say that, yes, at the beginning, you are the one, right? There is no community. And then there's always, you're talking to yourself. And when we are talking to ourselves, we always start with a negative, right? I'm not enough. I'm not doing well. There is nobody else who can show you that, you know what, you are doing amazing work, unless there's a co-founder, and that also you're talking to two people. That's brilliant. Yes, reach out to community. Rupali, thank you so much.
Yes, and I got one point that was in the last, that building confidence and resilience. And in that, yes, the very first point is said that taking care of yourself. Yes, it is very important. Like nobody is going to do it for you. Like
No.
you have to do it. You have to come up. You have to build your confidence by your own. Nobody is going to push you like Rupali, do it. But yes, they will say, but if once we are not prepared, we won't do that.
Right.
So for that, yes, this was very, very important. We need to push ourselves and build our confidence by ourselves. No one is going to do it. Okay, so now thank you, Dr. Zoya, and now I will call Rolla on the stage, which is our second speaker. I'll introduce her. Rolla is a passionate leadership coach and trainer dedicated to uplifting women's leaders. With over 30 years of diverse leadership experience, including roles with esteemed institutions like the British Council, Rolla has trained and coached hundreds of school leaders, nurses, and teachers globally. Oh God, this is incredible. Her journey is marked by personal resilience, especially following a near death experience,
Wow.
which fuels her mission to guide women in navigating challenges such as imposter syndrome and gender bias. Through her coaching business, Rola empowers women from all backgrounds to cultivate, cultivate resilience, build confidence, and unlock the true potential. Uh, I'll call Rola on the stage.
Thank you for such a beautiful introduction. Sometimes when we hear it from someone else, we'll be like, is that me? So
Thank
this is
you
like
so
the
much,
self-doubt
Rolla.
already.
Just to let you know, Dr. Zoya and Rolla, we have a 300 plus live viewer. They are watching you and they are learning so much from you. So thank you for coming to the stage and sharing your knowledge. Thank you, Rolla. Thank you, Dr. Zoya.
Thank you. First, let me share my slides. Okay, so what I'm going to be talking about is self-doubt. That's where imposter syndrome starts stemming from. So if we don't deal with self-doubt at a certain point, it will lead to more and more lack of confidence in ourselves. So in generally, we are talking about building confidence. And self-doubt or overcoming self-doubt is definitely one of the main things that we need to learn and build as we move forward. And let's see. Okay. So what we're going to be talking about right now is we're going to understand what self-doubt is and what leads to self-doubt, and some strategies to overcome self-doubt. Dr. Zoya covered a large number of ideas, which are very similar to how we deal with self-doubt. But we're going to do some practical stuff, hopefully by the end today. So what I want you to do first, before we start, is I want you to think about this question. Have you ever held back from an opportunity because you felt you weren't good enough? I can tell you you're not alone, and I'm one of them as well. We all are. We all have been there. But what I want you to do right now is I want you to think of something that is in your life right now that you are doubting and you keep holding back on. Because I want you at the end for you to think about that same thing, what you can do for you to actually overcome the self-doubt that you have after we do our little activities and I discuss with you what we should do. So I'm going to give you a second or so. Just think of something that you're holding back, you're not doing because you don't feel confident enough, because you're worried, because you think you're not good enough, and so on. One of the quotes that I love sharing when it comes to self-doubt is by Franklin D. Roosevelt, where he said, the only limit to our realization of tomorrow will be our doubts of today. And this is something I keep in mind all the time whenever that self-doubt comes up, whenever that little voice in my head comes up and he says, Rolla, you're not good enough. Rolla, you won't do this. And the only reason this happens, the reason we have that self-doubt, because our brain is made to protect us. So whenever there's something challenging, something new, something we're not comfortable with, automatically the brain sends out those little voices to tell us, I'm protecting you here. You're not good. Don't do this. Don't embarrass yourself. Don't do that. So this is something I want you to keep in mind. Now, let me tell you about my story a little bit very quickly. I was full of self-doubt. So whatever you heard, that introduction, That took a long, long time and a lot of work from the day I was born. I was, and my self-doubt, I'll tell you where it came from originally. It came from my childhood. When I was young, we immigrated from Lebanon to the United States. And I wasn't accepted very well. And I was bullied. I was always, by other students, I was always that, oh, she doesn't know, she can't do this, she doesn't speak English well, she has an accent. And back then, I was probably the only girl who has a little darker skin than the rest of the kids in school. So that started building up with me. And I became I came back to Beirut. I worked on myself, became a teacher, but that self-doubt always was with me. I had many opportunities to move forward and never did, until one day, an amazing person just came in my life and told me, Rolla, you can do so much more. And we want you to join our team. It's Imagine Education in the UK, where I became a trainer with them. So this is how I started overcoming my self-doubt and realizing that I'm taking a lot of things out of my way by not dealing with an issue that I had with me. Now, one thing we need to know, that self-doubt sometimes is good, because sometimes when we have some self-doubt, it's good, that helps us. It helps us to actually improve ourselves, because we might not have the competency that we need to do the job that we want to do. And we realize that, and that will help us to improve ourselves and move forward. But if we get stuck in the self-doubt and we start overthinking and over, and if it's repetitive in everything we do in our life, then it is something that we need to deal with. So let's think about, what is self-doubt? So the definition from the Webster Dictionary is, self-doubt is defined as a lack of confidence in oneself and one's abilities. So it's not only about myself, it's about my ability to do something. It involves feeling of doubt or uncertainty about one's abilities and actions and decisions. Now, what leads to self-doubt is another thing that Dr. Zoya touched upon a little bit when it came to imposter syndrome, and they're very simple, they're very similar. First of all, childhood upbringing. Second, past experience and failures. We are not our failures. This is something that we all need to keep in mind. We are not our past failures. We are people who learned from our failures, and that's why we are here. And if you think about it, whenever you fail, whether you deal with it in a positive way and you learn from it and you move forward, or you deal with it in a negative way and you get stuck, we are a different person before and after. And then we have the perfectionism. Sometimes we put such high standards to ourselves that we are creating our own failure, that we won't be able to reach it. And this is something that we really need to be careful of, because there's no one perfect. We all make mistakes. You can sit for hundreds of hours preparing something, and the difference between sitting for that long and sitting for a shorter period of time might be very slight and minimum, that you are only aware of. Other people might not be able to identify. I'm not saying not to work hard for us to reach where we want to reach. I'm a very hard worker, but I had an issue with perfectionism as well, because I was always told that I'm not good enough. So I always tried to make things perfect so no one would complain and say, you're not good enough. Negative self-talk. Please, 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 please be nice to yourself. I cannot stress this enough. We all have issues, the best of us. No matter how glamorous you see us, no matter how successful you see us, we all have issues. We just need to be nice to ourselves. Fear of judgment. Many of us live and thrive on outside validation. No one in this world can actually judge you as you would be able to judge yourself if you do it the proper way. Of course, we should get feedback from others, but that doesn't mean what is being said is actually the right thing, because we know that sometimes there are things coming from outside that are not true. And we know that, but we just crumble down and say, oh, but they said it. New challenges. So whenever we face something new, and this is something that I've always told my kids, if it's something new, accept it, go home, cry a little bit, take it out, and then sit and learn, and you will get over that new challenge. You'll make it. I know you will. We all can. Fear of failure, fear of success. Now, one thing I would like to share, fear of success, not many people talk about that. So if we take the story of Elizabeth Gilbert, she's the author of Eat, Pray, and Love. Well, she was writing her second book, which was Big Magic Creative and Creative Fear or Over Fear. I cannot remember the name, something like that. She actually revealed that she's scared that she will not be up to the standards of the success of her first book. The lady was sold like 10 million copies of her first book, and she still feared. And that's why some people fear success as much as they would fear failure. So we have, again, comparing ourselves to others. We don't want to even discuss that because social media is all over us. We open that phone wherever we go. How could she do it? How can she be so successful? Why can't I be like this? Oh, I'm so bad. I cannot do this. I'll never be able to reach that. So this is something, these are things that we really need to keep in mind so we are able to overcome our self-doubt. When we become aware of where our self-doubt is coming from, we're halfway through the journey because we are beginning to realize it. So how to overcome self-doubt? Let's see, we have some strategies, and I hope I have a minute at the end to do, I want to show you something about visualization. Self-awareness. Your number one strategy for you to overcome self-doubt is to become self-aware. You have to know what is triggering your self-doubt so you can deal with it. And the only way to do that is for you to be self-aware. And I'll tell you some of the things we can do to be more self-aware. We need to challenge negative thoughts. So whenever negative thoughts come to our mind, let's validate them. Where do they come from? Do I have evidence that shows that? Or do I have evidence that shows something else? And like Dr. Zoya said, write down your successes and go back to them. So whenever you have a negative thought, always go back to those successes and challenge that negative thought. And you'll know that it's not true. Set realistic goals. This is another important point because sometimes we dream so big that we don't realize that it will need a lot of work. So if I dream very big, I need to break it down to small, realistic goals so I can reach it. Seek support of all kinds, whether community, whether friends, whether coaches, whether therapists, if we need it, anything. You are not alone. We're all in this. Develop skills and knowledge. This is very important as well because we cannot dream of reaching somewhere when I don't have the skills. And I'm going to give you a very quick example. Just a few months ago, I was in the States, and at this age, 57, it was the first time I drive in New York. I've always was afraid of driving in New York because I've always heard from my mom, because we used to live in New Jersey. So I've always heard from my mom saying that driving to New York is difficult. Driving to New York is difficult. So what I actually did, I started visualizing driving in New York, but I cannot visualize driving in New York if I'm not a good driver. So I have to have the skill to be able to visualize. And it went well. I drove in New York my first time. I did well. And then we have practice self-compassion. Dr. Zoya went into detail on that. Please follow. Just choose one that shows self-compassion. One thing only. I don't want you to make a list, just one thing only. It would be great if you choose one thing to be self-compassionate. Now, the self-doubt habit loop. Everything we do in this life is a behavior, even the way we think, even the way our brain functions, And we all know we can rewire our brain, and we can always change our behavior and habits. And how are we going to do that? So first, we overthink, and that's where our self-doubt comes in. So we start doubting ourselves. If we integrate a new behavior, and this has to be intentional, it doesn't happen overnight, this needs practice. So when you start overthinking, what can you do? What can you change with? What can you change the behavior with? Take action and build confidence. So if I'm overthinking, for example, my driving, I cannot drive in New York, I start doubting myself. But if I take that new behavior and say, no, I can drive in New York, I'm a good driver, why should I say I can't drive in New York? And that's my new thinking, my new voice. I take action, I drive, and actually I build confidence. How do we break this habit loop? Like I said, we have to integrate a new behavior, but first we have to understand where that emotion is coming from. And we have to understand that emotions are normal, okay? And then understand that your brain can be rewired, and understand the 4 traps of self-doubt, and then take action. So the first 4 traps of self-doubt is hesitation, hiding, hypercritical, and helplessness. And these move in degrees. The helplessness one is very severe, which needs a lot of work for you to come out of. Now, in the practicing of self-awareness, journal, journal, journal. It's so important. Please journal, because you can identify your patterns of what's happening and what's going on. And then meditation is good, getting feedback from people that you support and you can come, so you can depend on, but those who are honest with you. So when you're not right, you're not right. When you're right, you're right. Okay, self-assessment tools, but please don't depend on self-assessment tools alone. You're not an assessment. You're not a result of an assessment. It's a combination of things. Get support, coaching, therapy, check in with yourself. Give yourself time to see what's going on with you. And then we have reframing your thoughts. Be aware of your negative self-talk through self-awareness, through journaling, practice affirmation and incantations, and your body language. So if I was talking to you, feeling like this, talking in such a low voice, you're not going to listen to me. I need to show you that I'm confident enough. And you need to tell your brain you're confident enough. The brain gets your response from your physical body. So affirmations, we can do them all the time to keep moving forward. I'm not going to go because I know I'm over time, Dr. Zoya. And then incantations is actually including a physical movement with your affirmation. I can do this. I'm strong enough to do this. We need to show it. We need to let our brain really believe it. And then, of course, body language is very similar. But I want to do one little activity. May I, Dr. Zoya? It'll take us a minute.
Yes, you have a time. Don't worry.
Okay. So I'm going to stand up with everyone. I want everyone to stand up with me. And I want you, we're going to do this in 3 stages. I'm going to show you how important visualization is. So what I want you to do is I want you to stretch your hand out. And I want you, looking at your hand, I want you to turn as far as you can. So do what I asked you to. Put your hand out and turn as far as you can. Bring your hand back right in front of you. Now what I want, bring it down. Now what I want you to do, I want you to close your eyes and I want you to imagine that you're raising your hand. Don't move it, just imagine it. Visualize it. Raise your hand, bring it back, just visualize it. Close your eyes and visualize this. And try to move further than the point you were at. One more time. Bring your hand back in your head. Now one more time. I want you to imagine it again, but this time, raise your hand and move your hand as far as you think you can do it. As far as you can. Think yourself plastic so you can twist all the way. Visualize it. Put it in your head. Now, I want you to open your eyes. And I want you to do the action. Put your hand out and move as far as you can. This is what visualization does to us. When we visualize, our brain finds a way to finds a way for us to actually reach what we're visualizing. But we need to have the skills and work on those. And finally, let's not just survive, but thrive. All of us, we can do this. And one of my favorite quotes from Rumi, it says, she overcame everything that was meant to destroy her. Our self-doubt. If we overcome it, it won't destroy us. Thank you. I would love to connect with everyone. It would be great if we connect on LinkedIn. And my beautiful new entrepreneur life, shining within coaching and consulting. Thank you so much.
Oh my God, Rupali, can I take a 30-second? I'm really thrilled to share this. I'm so happy. Thank you so much, Rolla, you coming over. And you know, it's very difficult. Even before starting the session, I was just telling myself, it is interesting topic, but and that but always stops there, me, that is a self-doubt. And it's so common with, again, as the Dr. Zoya mentioned it, having a you know, different color skin. When you are in that country, in that area where people judge you with the color skin, people judge you with being a gender, you are a female, there are lots of restriction and you break all the barriers and reach there. But there was always a reason I wanted to hear this session. And thank you so much, Rolla, for giving that one tool which I can practice definitely in my life, manifestation. That yes, what my mind can say that I can do it, my body will do it eventually. And that was fantastic. Thank you so much. Thank you, Rolla. Thank you, Dr. Zoya.
Thank you.
Rupali, please, sorry.
Thank you, Dr. Jaya and Rolla. As Dr. Jaya mentioned, yes, even I had a self-doubt. Before this session, this is my first time I'm hosting this type of sessions and event. Before I was having a self-doubt that, is this the time I can do this or not? So let's take action. This was my word. Like, now it's time to take action. And same thing I got from Rola, that she made one thing in a presentation. She mentioned that there was one loop where it was overthinking and self-doubt, and to overcome that, you need to take action and help your self-confidence. That was the best thing I've learned from you, Rolla. Thank you so much. Yes, now I'm going to help my self-confidence. Yes, let's move forward. I would also like to thank many of our attendees in the session. And we have our 350 plus live viewers for watching us virtually. So now it's time for question and answer. So our first question is, how do entrepreneurs differentiate imposter syndrome from healthy self-critique? So who wants to go first, Rolla or Dr. Zoya?
I'll go.
Yeah, go ahead, Dr. Zoya. Yeah.
Well, your self-critique, right? That's your inner voice and how you talk to yourself. So there may be things that when we think about self-critique, okay, I know I can do something better. Or maybe I did a project at work, or I did something in school. I didn't put forth my best effort, but I know I didn't, right? I'm aware that I did not put forth my best effort. So I am willing to say, okay, going forward, I know rather than waiting till 2 days before or the night before to cram and do my project, I will actually start a little bit earlier and pace myself. And maybe I won't feel that sense of stress or procrastination, right? Critique. But now we go a little bit further, and if we're using some damaging language toward ourselves, it's like, I've never been good enough. I've never been able to do this. I'm never going to get to the place that I am. And like Rolla explained, having that self-doubt from a younger age, and then you're moving forward in your life, and you hear someone else read your bio, and you're like,
Exactly.
okay, thanks, but who is that person that you're talking? Oh, that's me. Oh, so all of that kind of ties in. So understanding that when your inner voice becomes really harsh, when your inner voice is telling you that you're not good enough, when your inner voice is now kind of holding you back from moving forward, when it's holding you back from being able to say, hey, I can do something differently. And me being able to say I can always improve doesn't mean I'm not good enough. It just means that I can find a way to improve something. I can change something. I can fix this thing or that thing. I can do it. But if I hold on to that negative self-talk and I'm constantly living in it, this is what I tell myself repeatedly every time something happens, especially when it doesn't go my way. And now I'm holding it forevermore. And now I'm putting some validation into it. Oh, you see, I knew it wasn't going to work out. I knew it wasn't going to be good for me. And then you keep reliving it over and over again. So knowing the difference between that part, right? How critical you are with yourself. And then those points when you can say, hey, there's always a little bit of room for improvement. There's a balance there. Balance in everything that we do.
Oh, that
Yeah.
was very useful. Rolla, would you like to share anything?
I just want to say something very quick. I mean, Dr. Zoya was very very clear on how we think about it. Now, there's like sometimes it's between, when it's not very severe, it's between the fixed mindset and the growth mindset. So I don't know how to do this yet. Instead of saying it repeatedly that I don't know how to do this, I'm not going to be good at this. So having those 3-letter words at the end, the yet, that means that's I'm telling myself that there's a chance for me to learn and move forward. And this is a huge difference. And of course, when I am openly criticizing my work or myself, I am doing it to move forward. So I identify my weakness and I move forward to improve that weakness, which is amazing. But when I'm in the imposter syndrome phenomenon, it's like I have a black veil in front of me and it's all blocked. This is gonna happen. This is the difference between the two.
Okay, thank you so much, both of you. Our second question from our viewers is strategies to overcome self-doubt and foster genuine self-confidence. Should I repeat? Strategies to overcome self-doubt and foster genuine self-confidence.
I think that question was put in before we went into the details of what we need to do and move forward, and what are the things, the self-awareness, building our skills, visualizing, and so on. But I cannot stress enough how important journaling is. And it changed my life. I personally, journaling changed my life. I was able to identify what triggers me, what makes me happy, what makes me sad, what makes me angry, through journaling. It's an amazing tool, very simple, just a few sentences at the end of the day, if you don't have time to carry your little notebook like I used to do and write in there. So
And now, thanks to AI, we don't have to have a pen and the notebook with
exactly.
us. You can have on the phone and just
On your
type it.
phone.
Or the best is just talk it and then save it the audio file. Perfect.
Exactly.
Yep. I was going to add that in, Dr. Jaya, that the fact that my clients, like some of them they're like, oh, I can't journal. Or like, no, I don't want to journal. And I'm like, okay, so let's think about another way to get those thoughts out. And we've come to vlogging. They make a video of themselves and they talk it through, or they do the recorded audio and they save it. And sometimes they come back to session and they talk about what they said in the recording, the tone of their voice, and then how they feel 2 to 3 days later and how things have changed since then. there was a shift in that. So, you have to find your way. And it's when I'm in therapy with folks, I can give you thousands of coping skills, right? But only some work for you. So you've got to find the thing that works for you. And I was so happy when Rolla said self-awareness, because I constantly talk about, you must know yourself. You must know who you are when you wake up in the morning. Are you a morning person? Are you a night owl? Do you not like when somebody's talking to you in the morning? Do you like coffee or tea? Do you like to go and stand on the line at Starbucks, or do you get really irritated? Are you really social or not? Are you an introvert or an extrovert? Or like me, an ambivert, right? But like I ride the wave a little bit in the middle there, right?
In the
So most
middle.
often I'm an introvert. I like I like alone time. I like small groups. I like small settings. And then people are like, "Oh, come to this conference and present in front of 400 people." Are you sure? All the self-doubt just comes in, right?
I
But
know.
going back to what everybody just said, self-doubt and self-critic. Okay, I can do this. I am scared, but I can do it, right? So just being able to know who you are at your core. And even when I gave like that last slide about the building confidence and resilience, it's honestly, it's practice. When you come to therapy, or you go to a coach, or you go to an executive coach, you go to any kind of coach, a life coach, anyone that you're talking to, it's not that you're going to do the things in the week and then no more self-doubt, I'm confident now. No, you have to practice this. You have to put forth that effort, and you have to remind yourself, know thyself. Take care of me. And what does it mean to take care of me? To take care of me may mean I need to make sure that, I get up in the morning and I give myself enough time to get dressed, to have grace with myself. That if I'm constantly rushing all the time, it changes my mood and my tone for the day.
Definitely.
Make a promise to yourself. What was the promise you made to yourself? Keep your own promises to yourself. If you said
Definitely.
you want to do something, go do that thing, right? Don't give up on it because it got a little hard. Of course, it got hard.
It's gonna get hard, whether you like it or not, it's gonna happen.
It's true. Yeah, that's
Yeah, it's supposed to get hard, but it's okay. It doesn't mean that you give up and walk away. Find the things that make you feel good. What brings you back to your center? And like Rolla demonstrated, she gave you a technique to utilize. And again, may not work for everybody, but that's okay. What's your technique?
mm,
And that's why I said, what fills your cup? Is it a mantra? Is it a positive affirmation? Is it a prayer? And your small victories, please celebrate your small victories. Because if you did a workbook, let's say you completed it for 21 days,
Well done, yeah.
if you
Well
always
done.
book your flight at the last minute and pay those extra charges, and finally you booked your flight a month in advance, and you were like, I got it for cheap and I got a good seat,
Well done. Definitely.
right?
so that
Celebrate.
that's our next session where we are going to talk about um celebrating the small victories
Yes.
Yeah.
and going back to the vision board. Just not forgetting that, hey, we are celebrating, but going back to the vision board, tweaking around depending on the factors and situation. Yes, definitely. I'm sure Rupali has something to say. I'm sorry. I'm just taking over your
Yeah,
episode.
yeah, they were saying something, and I was loving watching them. I like it was like they can speak more, and I can get more and more knowledge. Yes, that was amazing.
Yeah, we can
Okay,
arrange one
so
conference, yeah, which is more
yes,
hours
of
rather than
course,
just 1 hour.
of course, and I would love to meet these guys. I loved few of the points were amazing. Yes, Dr. Zoya mentioned like no self doubt. Yes, uh, like believing ourselves is the key to overcome this. And as Rola mentioned, that come out of that loop. So by ending. Uh, do you have anything to say, Rolla or Dr. Zoya?
To
As the
end?
closing
I-
remarks, if you want to say something.
I just want to thank you for the opportunity, and I hope I was able to support and help everyone. And I cannot, again, stress enough, like Dr. Zoya said, know who you want, who you are and what you want, and don't start chipping off that. Identify and keep your space for yourself. Keep your space. Provide your boundaries. It's not wrong. You're not being selfish. Keep that space and don't start chipping off just because you think it's not, I shouldn't, or I wouldn't, and I can't. Whenever you catch yourself saying, I can't, I won't, I shouldn't, please think it through. Why are you saying that? And you'll be able to find little leads where it would take you to stop saying that so you can improve and get where you want to get. I hope this was helpful, and it was great meeting everyone.
Yes. I echo that. So I
Now,
thank you much for inviting me here. I appreciate being able to share information with folks, to help folks to kind of overcome this sense of a phenomenon, right? Because it's happening across the board. It's happening across those
Yeah.
age ranges. And it's important that you know that your differences make you uniquely divine and amazing. You are you for a reason. You get to be you every single day. Don't give up on you to go fit into someone else's expectation or box of you, because then that's when you start to put all this weight onto yourself. Be yourself, create your goals, and you stick to them. Like Rolla said, breaking them down to tangible things, right? Small objectives to reach the bigger goal. Do the things and be true to you.
okay, we are now ending this session. Thank you, Dr. Zoya. Thank you, Rolla. This was amazing meeting you here. Okay, so now we are closing this session. Don't forget to attend our next and very last session of the Mindful Entrepreneur Series, Celebrating Success and Back to Vision Board, on Thursday, 27th June, that is next week, at the end, same time, 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. London time. Till everyone, take care of themselves and have a lovely rest of the week. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to catch the final session of this series live on 27th of June 2024.